snow.
You
You
what?
got one person to let me in and talk to them.
Nice.
But they didn't want to sell. But at least somebody let me in.
They let you get out
Is
of the
that
snow.
because you were cold?
I don't know. I'll fight through it. It's not that cold. I'm from Texas. We have humidity, so
Yeah.
it's not that cold.
Good job. Who else? Wins or successes? What good things have happened? Nothing, huh? All right. Well, oh yeah, go ahead.
I'm scheduled to close next week
Ooh.
on the and I present the seller and the buyer side, so my first transaction ever. So
Nice, and you're getting to represent both sides on it. That's awesome.
my
Cool.
the win for me is having that opportunity to move on to the next step, and I'm grateful to have the experience that I have. So
Nice.
that's my win.
Awesome. Well, congrats. That's cool. Cool. All right, Paul, you ready?
Oh, yeah. Thanks for the opportunity. My name's Paul Jolly. I'm with Inspiro Financial. We're the affiliated lender that you're probably familiar with Century 21 Everest. We're just right downstairs. We have individuals that are based in Orem, and also we're kind of covering Centerville and so forth. I don't know if any one of you works out of Centerville, but we do have coverage there. Does anyone need a diary, a journal? Anyone needed any of these? Okay, great. We have plenty down there. If you get a chance, come down and visit us. We would love to kind of visit with you more and get to know you, see how we can help you in your efforts out there. As my time in lending has been interesting in that, we are dealing with the financial stuff of the borrower for the most part and trying to get them in a position where they are closing on their home and moving in. But what I've really found out is that we are project managers. We basically kind of set the loan up and get them on their way, but the loan turns into kind of a project management exercise because we're trying to get dot the I's, cross the T's, deal with all the details to get this file from here over the finish line. And so that requires, constant engagement, interaction with everybody involved, title companies, borrowers, yourselves. And so that's really what my job turns into, is to get it over the finish line or over the goal. So, but in any case, know that we have your interests at hand, and we're trying to deliver on the expectation. Are there any questions that you have relative to lending that you've come across? Yes.
I've run across one with solar issues where people have taken out, loans to put solar on.
Mhm.
And does the solar loan affect their debt to income? Because I've been told because it's a utility loan.
Yeah, it has an impact depending on what is taking place. What was interesting is that people have, they're selling homes with these solar apparatus on it. They're saying, well, it should add this much value to the house. It doesn't.
No. It's just
And
some of them have had a loan.
and so a lot of them have pulled the solar, appliance off and done whatever they do with it. But it does impact. There has to be some, in fact, Russ, you probably know maybe some of the nuances of the solar, having a solar panel on the home. But yeah, it does impact the loan. And if there are liens or if there are other encumbrances, yeah, those have to be resolved.
The question, though, this person has is that they took a loan out on it, but they were told it wouldn't impact their debt to income because it's a utility loan. So they pay on that instead of paying to.
I can get a
utility
clarification
company.
on that.
Okay.
If it's showing up on their credit,
Mm-hmm.
it is it's going
Right.
to impact their DTI.
Okay.
Yes.
It doesn't add to the value as far as an appraisal, but it does add to the value in the head of somebody, because now they're going to be paying less utility bills. I mean, like I have it, and I pay
Sure.
$10 for
Sure.
my utility bills.
But in terms of an appraiser, they used to the appraiser used to say, well, if you pay $25,000 for it, it might add $5,000 in valuation to the home. That is not necessarily the case anymore. Appraiser does not take into consideration at all. So that's, you know, that's something that you just have to be aware of. But I can get a clarification on that. But if it appears as a debt and an obligation on the credit report, it will impact their DTI.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? Very good. Thank you. Yeah, that's a great question though. But yeah, it's whatever appears in the credit. Okay.
All right, thanks, Paul.
You bet.
All right, we are going to, today, we're going to be playing Jeopardy. So let me get this pulled up and going here. So here's what I need you guys to do is there's, I think 12 of us, I think I counted. And typically we'll have a few more join here in a little bit. What I want you guys to do is get into 4 teams. And I think there should be 3 people per team then. So get into groups. I want 4 groups with equal numbers. Does that make sense? And so, and probably what I would say is have one over here, one kind of there, one here, and one over here.
And I'm supervisor.
No, you're playing.
I hate games and I don't know anything about Jeopardy.
Well, the good news is you don't need to know.
I don't know. Shall I just join you guys now? Is that cool? All right, we're going to be 5 now. Russ, we're 5.
Maybe I just count those. Maybe
This is
there's.
why I need to see.
Well, see, there's some of the other strings, so let's go.
Okay, that's on the help.
Okay. Let me do these two then. Are you 3?
All right, you're gonna pick. We're getting into teams, so you gotta pick a team. Except for it looks like we have 3 teams instead of 4.
So I have no idea.
Oh, you guys are a team right here.
I guess.
No, we want them all. Yeah, we want the big group.
All right, so you've got 3, you've got 3, they got 3, you guys have 5.
20.
Okay. All right, so now anybody else that joins will come into one of you two. All right, so here's what we're gonna do. So we're gonna play Agent Jeopardy here. The idea of this is, as part of the 12-hour new agent course, we have to spend a couple of hours on talking and to some extent reviewing what we've talked about over the last little bit. So I figured the way to do it would be to put it into a game that would make it a little more fun. What I have found is if we were to just talk about what we need to talk about today without the game, it would be a very boring day. But typically, it turns it into a competition and makes it a little more fun. So, all right, so here's what I need then. So in order to decide which team gets to go first here, what we need is one person from each team to come up here, and we're going to do rock, paper, scissors to see which team gets to choose. So each team send somebody up here.
You can win. Let's do it.
Go on ahead.
Okay, so you two can go first.
Wait, is it on 3 or on shoot? Like, after 3 or on 3? Let's make sure we get this right.
It's on 3.
Okay, on 3.
Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. Okay, so now, next.
Good job.
You two face off, and then the winners will go against the winner. So, rock, paper, scissors.
No throwing out the dynamite thing.
Yeah, no dynamite or guns. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. All right, now you two.
My 9-year-old beats me.
1, 2, 3.
Do it again.
1, 2, 3. Oh, you got it.
Okay, so you guys get to choose the first category up here. Now, let's talk about the rules of this here. I'm not sure how I'm going to define your teams on this over here, but here's where I'll keep score over here. So I guess you guys will be A, B, C, and D. So C and D. Okay? So here's what we're going to do. First, we got to decide. If you answer wrong, if your team answers wrong, or the other team answers wrong, do you lose points?
No, that's good.
Let's not.
Depends on the accounting you want to.
I heard 1 yes, 2 no's. What do you guys think?
Yes.
All right, so I would agree. I think we do. It makes it a little more fun. If you don't lose anything, you aren't afraid to answer. So you're going to lose. All right. Next thing is, once we choose the category, I'll bring it up. And I have to make sure to explain this, not just for Debbie, but Debbie said I don't know Jeopardy. But the way that Jeopardy works is anybody can answer. So any team can answer. The way that I need to hear from you guys, you have to make some type of a verbal sound so that I know you're, like, we don't have buzzers to buzz. So you got to do some type of verbal so that I know. And here's what's going to happen. At some point, somebody's going to go like this and not make a sound. If you don't make a sound, just raising your hand doesn't count. Make sense? All right. We all good on the rules? Okay, good. Perfect. All right. So since you guys are first, they get to choose the category up here. Once they choose it, anybody from any of the teams can ring in.
So we're supposed to.
The first one to ring in gets to answer, and then you'll either get the points or lose points.
So I don't know Jeopardy that well, but do we have to answer with a question?
Oh, great point. I do not care. You can. No, you don't have to answer in the form of a question. That's okay. You can if you want, but you don't have to. All right, so our team back here, B, I guess, you guys get to choose.
Agency 4,000.
Whoa.
4,000.
How about?
I'm always curious to see how long people are going to wait to jump to that. All right. All right, so I'm going to click this. It's going to bring up the answer, and then you get.
So
Be verbal.
he has a chance to answer it, right?
Anybody?
Anybody?
No, they don't get to answer first. Anybody, whoever I hear.
I am way too old for this game.
I'm going to turn this like.
This game's been on.
All right, we ready?
Let's go.
All right, agency for me.
Here goes. Agency for 1,000. Answer is, prohibits the agent from disclosing without permission any information given to the agent by the principal that would likely weaken the principal's bargaining position if it were known.
Russ, confidentiality?
Yep, that's it.
The answer is confidentiality, so good job. All right, you guys were which team?
They're
D. They're B. All right, so they're off to a good start here. All right.
Yes.
All right, good job. I'm trying to think if I want to say anything about it while we're on it. Any questions about it?
Question, can we get negative points?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, you can go in the hole. All right. Trying to think if there's anything else to say about that. Ultimately, part of what we're doing, I guess, is on this is a little bit of a hint that you should see is we're going to be talking about under the agency category is typically going to cover what are our fiduciary responsibilities that we owe to our clients. So, all right. So because you guys got it right, you get to choose the next category.
Wayne?
Let's go. Let's go contract 600.
Yeah.
All right. The answer is not illiterate, minor, insane, alien, or deceased. Now, if I need to give you a hint, I will. But
Take us out.
Make a sound. I did.
she kind of
Who cannot sign or go into a contract?
okay, but that is correct. But except for what that this is defining what that would be. So there are elements of a contract, and there are things that, in order for somebody to sign a contract, they cannot be illiterate. What would that be called? Well, so I'm going to let them first, defining it a little better. Do you know the term?
I do, but it's not coming to me.
All right.
Competency.
So before I reveal, I guess, how accurate do they have to be?
Yeah.
Just close enough?
Yeah.
Okay,
Unless
because
they get it.
you got part of it right, but close enough. I would say close enough. So legally competent parties. So in order for somebody to sign a contract, which, by the way, make sure some of these we'll stop and we'll talk about, some of them we may not. Don't let me forget to give you your points. So I'll do it right now since I said
Don't have a drink with your clients before they sign.
That's right.
Okay,
That's right.
I got a question on this.
Yes.
Okay, on alien, does that just mean a non-citizen? What are we talking about there?
Person
Yeah.
from outer space.
Somebody with it is not, yeah, it would be, so if you think on the FERPTA, it talks about a
That's selling,
foreign
though.
investor. Right, but that's what this would be talking about, is that,
Just the seller in that, right?
No.
Because you can have can you have non-citizens? Of course you
yes,
can.
but
This has to be disclosed.
they're gonna have to have a tax ID number is the key thing. Both on
Okay.
the buy and the sell side, that's the key thing. Now, where you're talking about on the seller side is somebody could come in and purchase a property with cash, and you wouldn't worry about if they have a tax ID number or anything.
Oh,
But on the
Okay.
sell side, the government
Okay.
wants their taxes if there's a gain.
okay, review that concept with me, the alien concept. Just bullet point it for me. Just tell me everything you just said.
That's why I was like, I just barely said it.
No, I gotta get this down because my clients are Chinese. I really gotta get this down.
Okay.
So, talk to me again.
Well, are they gonna pay with cash or are they getting a loan?
Usually cash.
Then don't worry about it.
Okay, but if they get a loan, I need to do what?
Well, you don't need to do anything. The lender will take care of it all.
The
So
lender will
really,
take
you-
care of it.
Ultimately, you don't have to really worry.
Okay, so those are the buyers. Now the sellers have to have a FERPTA in order, right?
Well, when they sell, part of what your job is just to ensure that they either have a social security number or a tax ID number.
Okay,
The IRS just wants to get paid if there's a gain when they sell the property.
and I need to make sure of that.
Isn't it, it's
Technically,
in the contract alone,
technically the buyer needs to ensure that it's crazy the way the law is written. The buyer has to make sure that the seller has a tax ID number or the buyer gets to pay the taxes.
Oh, that's right. Okay, how does title come into play?
So the way the law is written is either the buyer has to give to the seller, the seller has to give to the buyer their tax ID number or the title company. And almost always it's gonna be the title company,
So the bottom line is exchange information regardless.
pretty much.
Okay, thank you.
How does this relate to, somebody who's an illegal alien, undocumented person in the country?
That's what we would be talking about here.
So,
I think the trip up word is illegal.
well, you don't know if somebody's an illegal,
If they can't provide the tax ID or
They
a
get-
social,
yep.
then
That's right.
there's nothing.
It all boils down to that tax ID or social.
Can I add something?
Yes.
So if you don't have a social, you have a tax ID or an ITIN number to file taxes. So if they don't have a social, then they would have an ITIN, and that way you know
And
that
that's
they're
okay.
not filing taxes, and they can apply for the
And then
loan.
that's
Those
okay.
are just different.
Yep.
And anyone who is foreign, they have that number, that,
They should have.
yeah, if they wanna purchase, if they
Correct.
wanna do business in the United States.
Correct. Perfect. That's exactly right. Good.
I guess I'm a little confused though, because I went out and looked at a home with one of my clients, and the one selling the home was not a legal
How do you know
citizen
that?
of the United States. She told me.
Oh, okay. Well, so here's the key though, is that all they need to do then is go get that ITIN so that they can, the whole point of it is the IRS wants to be paid
Okay.
if there's a gain on the property. They want to collect the taxes, and if they don't, then the buyer will be responsible to pay those taxes.
Okay.
And they can be a non-citizen and still have a social.
Yes.
Because the IRS isn't immigration.
Yeah. Yeah, they just want to get paid. They just want their money.
Okay, I want to make sure I understand this. So this applies only to, at least what we've been talking about, like the alien status thing, only applies if they're getting a loan, or does it apply if they're purchasing any property?
Well,
Like if they're buying with cash?
if they're paying with cash, typically, my experience is, and I might be wrong, so if somebody else knows, but the title company doesn't really care.
Okay, so then wouldn't, if they didn't have a tax ID or social, then wouldn't the IRS not get paid if they sold that property later? How does that?
Well, that's where the key then is when it's time to now sell. So when they buy it, it probably doesn't really matter because the IRS doesn't care. They're not gonna worried about getting money. But when it's time to sell, if there's a gain, a capital gain on that, they want to get paid. And so the way that to ensure it is they have put a law that says the buyer is responsible to make sure that the seller either has a social security number, a tax ID number,
Okay.
so that they can get paid.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yep. Okay, good. Awesome. All right, next then. Over to, you guys got it, right? No, you got, who got it? Yeah, you guys got it. All right, what are we doing?
Let's do state laws for 400.
All right. Okay, so this one's going to be dealing with some of the state laws that we have. So this one is use of 2 or more contracts, one of which is concealed. We're looking for the term. Okay.
A double contract.
Good job. The answer is double contract. So let me let me explain 2 things on. I want to go back to that legally competent parties. I shared with you guys, I think last week, might have been the week before, I shared with you guys a story about, it was the week before, I shared with you a story about a client, or not a client of mine, but one of the company that I worked for, that an agent that I was training, that he had gone out and gotten the listing signed, but it had the mom's name on the contract, and then the mom came back later on and said she wouldn't sell the property. The reason behind that was because technically he was not a legally competent person in the eyes of the state. And so she had gotten herself put on there so that wouldn't happen. So anyway, just tying that together. Double contracts. So this luckily is not really happening so much right now. I haven't seen much of this go on, although there still is a little bit of this. So I wanted to point out just 2 areas that this tends to happen, is this double contract stuff. One is, and this happened quite a bit in late 90s, early 2000, what would happen is somebody had this idea, which actually was a genius idea, really. In fact, as I share this with you, you guys are going to be like, well, that is a good idea. We should do that. And it is okay to do what I'm going to share with you, provided you don't do it as a double contract. And I'll explain what I mean by that. What happens if you buy a home and you were to do no money down, you're going to be forced to have mortgage insurance. But if you put how much down, do they not now require that?
20
Yeah, typically 20% down is what typically is going to have to be in order for you to not have to pay mortgage insurance. So somebody had this idea of, and just for the ease of numbers, I'm going to make them simple, that, hey, if this person was selling their home for $80,000, well, I don't want to have to pay mortgage insurance, so I'm going to go offer them $100,000. So now instead of purchasing the home for $80,000, I'm going to purchase it for $100,000. The seller get a loan for the $80,000, but have the seller do a seller finance for the other $20,000, which everything I've said so far is okay. You could do this. Have the seller finance $20,000, but then this is where they got into trouble, is have an agreement with the seller that after closing, they forgive the $20,000 note. So I don't really have to pay back the $20,000. So now I purchased the home for $100,000, have been forgiven the $20,000 note. So I have a loan for $80,000, and that's all the home was worth anyway. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So you got to join one of these 2 teams. Come decide which one you want. Are you staying and playing, Chris? Do you want to join the team?
Oh, Chris, we got both of you.
All right, you're on the team.
Got both of you, both of you.
So but where that became an issue is it becomes an issue when you have an agreement up front that after closing we'll forgive the note.
And that also includes appraisals, right? If you
What?
have a higher appraisal and you really know that it's going to be appraised for X amount.
Well, so that's the challenge in today's world with this that we didn't have back then when a lot of agents were doing it, was it would appraise for whatever.
Right.
Because they had an arrangement with the appraiser.
Well, not necessarily. It's just that the lender would tell the appraiser we need it to appraise for $100,000, and they would go, oh, okay. And I mean, occasionally you'd run into an issue, but not.
My appraiser they used to ask us, how much do you need?
Yeah, how much do you need to appraise for?
How much do you need on it? And it was, you'd say, oh, why don't you give me $225, and the house was worth $180.
Yeah.
Which all led to $2,080.
Yeah. So, and where the issue, like, it sounds like a genius idea, because, well, you're really only paying $80,000 for the house, but what's the problem? Why? I mean, clearly it's a double contract, but why is that an issue?
Because the bank doesn't know about it?
That's right. Meaning if you were loaning the money and you think you're in a position of the 80% loan to value, you're thinking, okay, good. If something goes wrong, I could sell it and get my money back. When in reality, they weren't going to be able to do that. So anyway, that's where this whole double contracts. The other place that I've seen it more recently, where this comes about, is people doing things like saying, okay, as part of the repairs on the property, this is what we want repair-wise to be done, and the seller agreeing to do it or to pay to do it, and then there's really no plan to do it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So just, here's the thing, just keep in mind, the biggest thing you want to look at in terms of this double contract so that you know if it's an issue or not is more of, are we hiding something from the lender? Does the lender really know what's going on in this? And if they do, then it's probably fine to do it. But if you're, and I guess where I'm saying this is when you hear the other agent say to you, yeah, let's go ahead and put together that addendum, but then don't turn it into your office or to the lender or anything like that. Now is when you're getting into, oh, that's a double contract. So that's where that can be an issue. Does that make sense?
Russ, something is coming back to my mind. Bill of sale, personal properties. What am I thinking? People would add up and they'd say like the refrigerator's worth $800 and it's worth not the refrigerator, but something else. Well, yeah, refrigerator, washing machine and dryer, and they'd up that price. Why did the agents do that? Did that come into play with the lending at all?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Our personal properties, our bill of sales, does that come out of the buyer's pocket or is that part of the
It
lending
should.
proceeds?
No. The whole idea of the bill of
I
sale
kn-
is to be separate from.
So maybe that's what I'm thinking,
Probably.
where it is actually part of the
Could be.
value of the home. I think that's
Could
what
be.
I'm thinking.
Could be. All right, who got that? You guys did? And it was for 400. So we got a tie game going now. Oops.
I like
1,000, not 100. Right? All right. Next. So back to this team over here. You guys get to choose again.
Federal law 600.
Oh, and I need to send this one. So let's get that. Federal laws for how much? 600. Okay. These ones may be a little more difficult on some of them. Some may not be, but. Now, before I show the answer, I'm not sure if this is the one. There are two that are pretty similar, so you'll lose points if you're wrong. So, you ready? Eliminates discrimination against those with disabilities. This is not the one I was thinking of, so that's okay. Don't panic too much. What is the law? What's the federal law or act or something that does that?
The year?
Oh, there we go. I saw your hand, but I didn't hear anything. I was kind of hoping somebody else wasn't going to chime in. All right, what do you got?
Americans with Disabilities Act?
That is correct.
Yes.
The Americans with Disabilities Act. Now, what exactly, so what is that? What does it mean?
You can't discriminate somebody that has a disability.
Yeah, and they have to be Americans.
I'm not sure that's true, actually. But all right, so this doesn't really come into play too much for what we are doing, but if you were doing any property management, this could come into play. In terms of property management, could somebody come in that was in a wheelchair and say, I want to be able to have a parking spot that is closer to whatever?
If it's within, there's like this within clause.
You're talking about apartments or a home?
Yeah, in terms of renting, just, yeah, so more so thinking apartments, I
They
guess.
can if it's something that can be done without extreme cost.
Okay.
Is my understanding.
And the
Sorta.
First floor.
Well, they have to be able to have the access to.
Right, yeah.
So if there are no covered parking spots available, that's not discrimination.
Right. But if there are,
But if there are,
or a closer one or whatever.
I
Now,
mean-
what about this? What if they wanted to have a handle or something put into the shower?
yes.
Yeah, they can do that.
At whose expense?
Their
Their own. And what else do they have to do? Put it back after. Okay, good. Now, like I said, we don't run into that so much on the sales side, which most of us are doing that, but just in the event you ever did get involved in any type of a rental. All right, back to you guys. So, are B and C, are you guys going to play today? Or?
So our little group, right?
Yep, back to you
You wanna
guys.
do it?
Go ahead.
Okay, let's
We
take,
got two Chris's.
agency for
He's on the other
200.
two.
An easy one.
Agency for 200?
Yes.
This one. Occasionally I forget that there's two agencies, but you're thinking this
Oh,
one.
yes, sorry,
Okay.
yes, I didn't even see the
All right, here we go. Proper time to disclose who you represent.
Russ?
Yes.
Immediately upon contact with whoever it may be.
Okay, that's probably close enough. I'll explain really the idea. So ultimately, it's prior to executing a binding agreement, but the intent of this rule, when the state put this in, is that as soon as practical, which is why I'm saying I'll go with as soon as you can, is because the intent of the law was to do it as soon as practical. So let me ask you some questions on that then. You're holding an open house. Somebody walks in the door. Do you have to say to them, I represent the seller of this home? Like, meaning Londa walks up. As soon as she gets to the front door, hi, I represent the seller of this home.
That's nice.
Like, is that what we need to do?
No.
No. But ultimately, it's the way that it's worded, the law on this, is prior to executing a binding agreement, which would be what?
Yeah, an offer or a.
Yeah, so think of it this way. Here's how I want you guys to think on this. There's two pieces of this. One is the legal side from the division, but then we've got the Board of Realtors over here that we've got our code of ethics. Okay? So as far as the state is concerned, they're saying prior to executing an agreement, but the intent of the rule is as soon as practical. Meaning, so as far as the state is concerned, I don't have to do it the moment I meet somebody. I don't need to say, just so you know, I represent the seller on this. But as soon as it's practical, meaning you shouldn't, ultimately for me, here's how I think about it. As soon as they are going to start to talk about something that might be to their detriment, meaning because of your fiduciary duties, is when you need to let them know who you represent. But for sure, prior to executing a binding agreement. So that's the law side. Now let's go to our code of ethics side of things. What does it say that you need to do in terms of a disclosure of who you represent and or interfering with somebody else's client?
I don't know exactly the verbiage, but it's, you need to find out if that person is represented by a buyer's agent.
Okay, but at what point do I have to do that? So now we're talking from the code of ethics side of things. Meaning, so let me say it this way. If I'm holding an open house, Londa walks in, do I need to say, are you working with an agent?
I don't think it's the very
second-
first
no,
thing
no, no,
you
no.
need to say, but I think it needs to come very soon in the conversation.
Now, typically what you were trained when you went to the orientation, if you have been yet to the board, and if you haven't, this is what they're going to tell you. You need to ask them as soon as it makes sense, basically, of this, if they're working with an agent. But that's actually not what the Code of Ethics says. The Code of Ethics says that you need to ask prior to, and then the way it's worded is providing a substantial service. And then in parentheses, it defines that as writing an offer or presenting a CMA. So for me, the way that I think you should do it to find out if somebody is working with an agent is don't just say, are you working with an agent? What you want to ask them is, when would be a good time you and I could sit down and talk more about what you're trying to accomplish? If they're working with an agent, what will they say at that point?
I'm working with an agent.
Yeah, so for me, the way you find out if somebody's working with an agent is ask them for an appointment. Because if somebody's working with an agent, they're probably not going to give you an appointment. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. All right, who got that one?
Chris?
Oh, I should have known. All right. 1800. All right, next. And on these, if you guys have other questions, stop me and we'll talk about them. All right, back to Team D.
I don't know, let's do agency continued for 800.
All right. Like usually when we do this, it's like people are very organized and going straight down until all of a sudden somebody, which you guys did it from the get-go, as soon as somebody goes to the 1,000, it's on. All right, here's the answer. Works to assist in negotiating a mutually acceptable transaction for both the
Russ?
buyer and the seller.
Is it mediator?
Oh, no! It is not. All right.
Russ?
Okay, I'm not hearing anything.
A dual agent? Or
Close
limited
enough.
agent, sorry.
Close enough. I would accept dual agent because they are the same. So yes, limited agent. All right, so in a limited agency situation, we've got actually some other things that we'll talk about this. So there's another question related to this, so I'm not going to say a whole lot on it, but you guys understand what it is though, right? Anybody not know what limited agency is? You're representing both the buyer and the seller.
And we need to be careful on that too, because if we're under the House of C-21, we automatically become limited agents.
If, you got to finish that statement.
If we're doing both buttons. selling
Yeah,
and buying.
Yeah,
if we've got a
okay.
seller and a buyer.
So I was going to say,
we're
just
okay.
because we're with Century 21 doesn't make us limited agents.
No.
Anytime that the principal broker is the same for both the buyer's agent and the seller's agent, then you're going to be limited. So if for you guys, if it's a Century 21 Everest, the other side of the transaction, it's going to be limited. If it was a Century 21 Harmon that's in Provo, we would not be limited in that scenario. Okay. All right. Good. Back to this side. Do you want me to start cheating to help you guys out?
No. How do you cheat?
Oh, I'll show you. But you better be watching carefully or you'll miss it. All right, over to you guys.
Let's do state laws for 800.
State laws for 800. Here we go.
Double jeopardy.
All right, here we go. Paying an unlicensed person for a referral. There's a term. So what I'm looking for is the term for this. Paying an unlicensed person for a referral. All right.
What is it, kickback?
Give me a different term. You're on the right track. This one's going to be tougher, so I may accept that. If you can come up with... Since nobody else has got anything either, we may just accept it. That's better. So, I don't expect you guys to exactly get it, so I'll accept kickback on it, but it's finder's fees is what it's called. All right. You're on the board, though. Good job, Jeff.
Finder's fees
Art
sounds
question
so
on that.
legitimate.
Yes.
Are kickbacks specifically related to lenders or no?
I don't think it's just that. Like you could probably refer to this as kickback, which is why I'm okay with it. But the way that the state defines it is a finder's fee. Now, so how much can we pay to an unlicensed person for a referral?
No more than 250.
150.
So it's actually just changing right now. I was reading the other day, and I think it's going to 250, but it has been 150. So
Do I get extra for that?
yeah, you get extra credit for that. All right, so but there's another key piece to that.
Has to be unexpected and not sought after.
Yeah, and the key thing on this is you can pay up to, and it is $250 now, but as far as like anybody that's still in real estate school, they haven't changed the test yet to $250, so it's still $150 on the state test, which is not really correct. It's actually $250 now. So you can pay up to $250 to somebody for an unsolicited referral. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So saying to somebody, if you will pay me, if you refer somebody to me, I'll pay you $250, won't work. Has to be unsolicited. But here's what I typically recommend on this. Anytime you get a referral from somebody, I think it's a good idea to get Starbucks, Cold Stone, something like that of a gift certificate or gift card. As soon as you get a referral, send it to them. Even, $10, $15. Thanks for referring this person to me. Once you sign a contract with that person, then I think it's a good idea to send them to, like, since I see Chili's right over here, get a Chili's gift certificate or something like that. Hey, thanks for sending those people. I went ahead and signed a contract with them to help them sell or to buy or whatever. Then once they close, send them another one that's like to Ruth's Chris or something for $100 or 150. And hey, we just closed on those people. Wanted you to know how much I appreciate you referred them to me. What you can't do though is tell people up front you're going to do that. It has to be an unexpected kind of a thing on the finders. Does that make
Glad you
sense?
brought that up, because that was in the video I watched of your working your SOI, and I thought that, I was like, wait a minute, I thought you couldn't pay.
Nope, you can't.
But then I rewatched it and I was like, okay, yeah, he didn't solicit it.
That's right. The key is it's got to be for an unsolicited that we can pay that to
Would it
people.
be considered soliciting though if that person continues with an expectation?
Yeah, good question. So thank you for bringing that up. So here's the key on that. Is if you're going to do what I just recommended, you got to be quick on doing it. Meaning, if you called me and said, hey, I got somebody else to help you. Oh, that's awesome. Like I hurry and write it and send it. Where typically people are going to get in trouble on that is, let's say that you called and referred that person to me and I was like, oh, I'll send that to her later. And then I forget for a week or two or whatever. And you called me and was like, hey, last time I referred somebody to you, you sent me a gift certificate to Cold Stone over here. All of a sudden now that's turned it into she's expecting it kind of a thing. So don't hesitate, get it over there before they call, because as soon as they call you going, hey, I thought you were going to do that. Or if all of a sudden they started saying, hey, is that going to happen every time I send somebody to you? That's where it could kind of be turning it into now it's like a solicited kind of a thing. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So we got to be careful with that.
So what would you say if they did ask that later?
It's a bummer, you shouldn't have asked. Now I can't anymore. I'm just kidding. But ultimately, I think you would just have to explain to them is I can only do it for unsolicited, so it's not something that I can say, yes, it's going to happen every time you're going to do that for me. So I can't promise you that. It just have to be a surprise. Surprise.
Yeah.
Okay. In the back.
Contracts for 1,000.
All right. You guys are going to tie it up right here, right? All right. Answer is meeting of the minds. Now, so let me, if you want to ring in, go for it. But ultimately what we're looking for is there are 5 elements to a contract. This is one of the elements of a contract. I heard here first.
Mutual agreement? Or is that not there? Dang it.
But what do you?
I'm trying to remember how it's worded now. What were you going to say?
The contract,
Yeah.
We have to have a signature on both ends.
Oh, it's a good thing she rang in first then.
Oh.
So you don't lose points. I think it is mutual agreement, but I'm...
Shoot! None of us got it.
I was gonna say acceptance.
Offer and
There
acceptance.
should be
I
just.
don't
Participate.
I'm
So
going
should
to
give us
give
all the
them,
points.
give you all the points.
Yeah,
What?
both
Both ends, both sides. of
Well,
the
but she
signature.
can argue the same thing, because isn't that mutual agreement?
No.
I was gonna say under contract. That's what I was gonna say.
Neither of them are considered offer
Just
though.
We're gonna say
acceptance.
something.
No, it's gotta be
So
acceptance.
They lost $1,000.
Because part of acceptance.
You're saying they lost
Yeah.
$1,000?
That is
Part of
mutual.
acceptance
Offer
is
is-
delivering.
They lost 1,000.
What?
Part of acceptance is delivering.
Okay.
So
But
it
nobody
can't
said-
be all these other things. It has to be that.
Really, you should add,
It
shouldn't you add
does.
to that offer and acceptance, because she is right on mutual agreement, because that's offer and acceptance, but consideration.
Well, that's the offer, is the consideration.
I'm trying
Not
to decide
necessarily,
what to
I could
do.
offer to buy your
Try-
house, but offer not to give you earnest.
I'm trying. Yeah, he's stretching. I'm trying to decide if I think.
No. I could go in, I could say, I want to buy your house, and just write an offer on it, but if I don't have any consideration, i.e. earnest money, it's not.
That's a different question.
Yeah, and you have an offer.
I'm just trying to decide, is mutual agreement the same as offer and acceptance?
What does Chris think? Is Chris still here?
Yeah, we're.
What do you think?
He is
Yeah,
still
Chris,
here.
you get a break to tie.
Looking at it, maybe a question to ask is.
See,
can
they get to boo
mutual
you.
agreement- Can mutual agreement fall outside of offer and acceptance?
That's a good question. I'm saying it counts. Do you agree, Chris?
Yeah.
All right.
Chris, go. No, I'm just kidding.
All right. So, because the reason I guess I'm thinking that it counts is making the offer and accepting would be they're mutually agreeing to it, so. My bad. I should have reviewed this to make sure I knew exactly what I was doing. All right, next, back to you guys. I'm saying it's close enough.
Federal law 400.
Your team missed out on 1,000 points because you were gone, Chris.
That's
Oh,
right.
Wait, hey, but they didn't lose anymore.
All right, you ready? Here's the answer. Truth in lending. Oh, this one's a tough one. This one probably should have been the 1,000-point one for this, federal laws. There is truth in lending falls under a federal law. Is really this is probably the toughest question.
So you're asking for the larger picture law that this sits underneath?
Yep, truth in lending falls underneath, and this one's a tough one.
I think I know what I'm not.
Yeah, you're not willing to risk 400 points on it?
Just do it.
All right.
Is it a good faith estimate?
No.
Hey, at least we're on the board. You know?
Mine is 400. Yes. You're on the board now. All right, Jeff.
Disclosures?
No.
That's a good.
So we let everyone lose 400 before we,
Yeah, that's it.
before I give you the
You're
answer?
looking for the larger.
Yeah.
It's a larger law.
Russ?
Yes.
Dodd-Frank?
No.
I'm just gonna take another call.
Don't be scared, teammate.
If we just get them to lose 400, let's all even.
Each one of you guess now, so we can go
Yeah, if you guys guess now, then it'll all be even.
Are
when
you
you
looking
guess.
for a term or a definition?
It's the name of the law,
The name of the law, is it,
or the law it falls under.
You're not ready to just.
Yeah, there you go. Give me a
is
guess.
it
No.
TILA, the Truth in Lending
No.
Act? Is that what you're trying to? Okay.
Now we're all even, so I'll give it to you. All right.
I don't think so.
It is the Federal Consumer Credit Protection Act. So the Federal I told you it was the hardest one probably in this whole thing.
Okay.
The Federal Consumer Credit Protection Act, truth in lending falls under that. So as part of that act, they're saying you got to disclose, which I guess somebody could make an argument that Dodd-Frank falls at.
I like that.
Yeah. I'm not going to give it to you. But you could make an argument for it, and you'd probably not win. All right. Who chose that one?
We did.
You did. Okay, choose the next one then.
There you go.
Does everyone have the sign-in sheet? Okay. All right.
Let's do state laws for 1,000.
All right. Big money. No whammies. Okay. All documents reflect the true terms. This is probably the second hardest one. I don't know. You might think it's even harder than this one. This one I usually have to end up giving hints on, so we'll see how you guys do though. It's so here's the first hint. It's somewhat. Well, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
She buzzed in. She buzzed in.
I know. I need to make it as you have to raise your hand and make a noise.
Oh,
That's
you
all.
keep changing the rules.
No, I'm not. I said I should make it that for next time. All right. We had one of our answers earlier. This could somewhat fall underneath that term that we used earlier.
How many words is it?
2 words.
2 words.
That was going to be the next hint. There's 2 words. I did hear a.
Yeah. Is it a closing disclosure?
No, it's not.
Sorry, guys. All documents do reflect the terms.
Hey, you guys are tight for last.
Yeah! Good job, guys!
All right. Anyone else want to buzz in, or you guys want more hints?
More hints.
One more hint.
Okay, 2 words. I already gave you that, right?
Yeah.
Falls underneath one of the things we did earlier.
That's what
The
I
first
said.
word.
Hey, they
Don't
get
say the
negative.
The first word is the opposite of one of the words up there.
Right?
The opposite?
It's the opposite of one of the words. The second word would be a different form, which you'll probably never guess, but a different form of one of the other words up there.
Documents, contracts.
Or a synonym probably is probably a better way to say it. to
It's
one
the
of other.
opposite?
So one, first word is the opposite of one of the words. Second word is a synonym to one of the other words. Some, to some extent. Do you guys want me to just give it to you?
No, one more
You,
hint.
you want to lose?
One more hint. Let's do one more.
I don't know if I can give any more hints.
Come on, Russ, you can do it.
Okay.
What does that
Yeah,
rhyme
okay,
with?
here you go. I'm still not sure it's gonna give it away, but we talked about double contracts. If somebody did a double contract, they would use one of these, to create basically the double contract. But I've heard the first word. Yeah, I've heard it a couple times. False.
Yeah.
So that's correct. False. The second one's, I'm just not sure, like, I don't know if I'd risk it if I were you, for 1,000 points. Do you want me to just give it to you?
Yeah. Give us all each point, wait.
False
Devices, yeah, see, I was like.
False
I
devices.
was trying to think of.
Now you know why that one was 1,000 points. That one was.
So is device the other term of a document?
Yeah, that's what I was saying. It's
Yeah.
kind of related to, instead of a document, it's a device. Using
Okay.
false devices is a.
Well, that's a phone.
So I was just thinking, I'm going to remember that for next time. When you say, give me another hint, I'm going to say another word for your phone.
Well, I'll give it
That probably wouldn't have helped, did it?
Yes,
away.
it
No, that
would.
would give it away right away.
Would it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Well, good. I'll remember that for next time. All right. We're back. Who chose that? You got, okay, back to you guys.
Oh, it's me.
Okay, Chris, this is on you.
Pressure, man. Holy cow.
Agency for 800.
Agency for 800. Okay, we ready? Obligates the agent to inform the principal of any material fact the agent learns about.
That's
Yes.
disclosure.
Full disclosure is what it is, but that's close enough. So good job. All right. Look at that. You guys are making a comeback. I'm going to have to start helping you cheat. All right. Full disclosure, obviously anything you know you need to let your client know about. Here's one of the things I would say on this. One of the things that I think is helpful in terms of this with your clients is make sure that they understand that. And what I mean by that is, too many times I see what happens with an agent and their client is it's almost an adversarial, meaning the client feels like you're against them. And I think if you would stop and explain this of, hey, part of my duties that I have owe to you as an agent is I'm on your side. So we got to get or not have this feeling of like that you think I'm trying to get you to do something you don't want to do or whatever, meaning like I'm on your side. Anything I know, you're going to know. So I'm not trying to persuade or manipulate, probably is the better word. We do persuade. We don't want to manipulate them. All right. Next.
Let's do agency continued for 1,000.
All right. Here's your chance, Chris.
Yes, Chris. Yeah.
All right, agency continued. Here we go. These become limited in limited agency. So of our fiduciary duties, I hope I can remember all three. There's three. That's the hand I'll give you.
Right, go for it.
Okay.
Confidentiality, loyalty, and disclosure. Full disclosure.
I think that's right.
Yeah, I think it is too.
Yep. Good job.
That's it.
Oh, you're catching up.
You guys help.
All right, good. Yeah, so in, what's that?
Is that 22,000?
2,200. 22,000. Yeah, so in limited agency, once we become limited, the client is giving up undivided loyalty. So we're still going to have loyalty, it's just not undivided, and you're giving up the full confidentiality and the disclosure pieces. All right. Any questions on that? All right, next. Back to you guys.
Contracts for 800, please.
Oh, even please. All right, here we go. A sacrifice and a benefit. So remember, these are the elements of a contract. I'm trying to remember what they.
We don't need to go
I'm
back
not
to
sure I remember
school.
the answer on this one right now.
This is state test exam.
Well, that's the point of this. The whole reason the division put this together is they want to make sure you actually learn something in school.
Excuse me.
Because I can't hear you.
I told you I was going to cheat.
I know.
Yes.
And nobody saw it.
Go. No.
No, you
You
go.
go.
You go. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Go.
I don't know if I remember,
Yeah,
so give me
it
the
is.
answer, and then I hope you'll remind me.
Valuable consideration.
What did you say?
I think you got it. I think that is correct.
Valuable.
Although I think it's just consideration.
That's okay.
Good job.
Consideration. Oh,
All right.
Yeah, way to go. You guys are good.
400. Okay, good job. So yeah, consideration. Now, so here's the question. What is the sacrifice that the buyer is giving up
Money.
for the benefit of
House.
what's the seller giving up for the
Money.
money? Good. So in a contract, there's got to be a sacrifice and a benefit, which the term for that is consideration. All right, next. Back to you guys. Choose again. Here's your chance, Wayne.
Me?
Federal laws for 1,000.
All
All right.
right. Let's rock.
All right, here we go. Issues relating to noise, air quality, water, wildlife, etc. So we're looking for. This one's not necessarily a law. It's more. The problem is, as soon as I say this, you're all going to get it. So you got to help me know who buzzes in, Chris. You ready? This is more of a group within the government. Although it is technically a law as well. So, and I think I heard somebody say it a second ago. So one of your groups might want to try it.
Okay.
If you said.
Okay, go.
All right, Wayne's giving it a shot.
No.
Big money.
I don't think it is.
No, are you giving up?
Let's rock.
Can't I'm buzzed.
EPA.
That is correct.
Yeah,
There you go.
Way to go, way to go.
Oh, that is so cool.
All right. Good job.
Okay.
All right. The EPA is who's going to cover any of the issues related to that. All right, next. Back to you guys.
Yeah, I just have a real quick question. So
Yes.
on the federal laws, is that the different like governing bodies, or is it? Because like that
No,
one
typically,
wasn't-
I know that one's more of a government. That's what I was saying.
It
It's
sounded
more
like it was more like a rule or a law, not a.
Yeah, I know. I just
So
threw
it could
one in
be
to
any.
trick you. Yeah. The rest of them are more laws.
Okay.
All right, what are we doing?
Go ahead.
Sure. I don't know. Agency 600. Continued.
This one.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. No statement or action can result in fraud or misrepresentation. Ooh, this is another one I'm like, I'm not sure I remember what. Hopefully you guys give me a good answer and I can be, oh yeah, that's it. Oh, I think I know what it is. If I'm remembering correctly, this one is not a fiduciary duty that we owe to our client, but we owe it to everyone. There's your hint. So our fiduciary duties we owe to our clients. This one we owe to everyone, even if they're just a customer. There's your next part of the hint. If they're not a client, they might be a customer. You guys are thinking way too hard.
No one's getting it wrong.
Yes.
Yeah, honesty.
I think that's correct.
Oh,
Let's check.
Honesty.
Well, I was like, wait.
Yes.
That's okay.
I told you guys were thinking too hard. Should have buzzed in.
Good job.
Right, yeah.
Way too easy.
Twice and they haven't caught it.
We're all about it.
All right, good job. Which one do you guys want next?
Yeah, you can
Finally.
go for it. Go for the big one.
The 800.
Yeah.
Federal laws for 800.
All right, here we
Go big
go.
or go home.
Right.
Unlawful to discriminate based on any of the following: race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. This one's a federal law.
What?
Yeah, we got it.
Okay,
Go ahead.
Fair Housing Act?
Yeah.
Yep.
that is not
Yeah.
correct.
Oh, we would have
What
got
did
it
he
wrong.
say?
Fair housing.
Fair housing. This one's, I should have warned you, it's a little tricky. That one's going to come up in a minute. There's your hint.
Wait, what was it?
This law was passed in, oh, now see if I can remember the year. 67? 68. Yeah, so what, yeah,
I
you're telling
can't
me
think
the
of
year.
the word.
You're telling me the year. Tell me the law.
No words are coming to my mind right now.
Can they answer again since they just lost?
No.
Oh, I guess you gotta wait.
As long as it's the wrong answer, they can. I can't think of it.
But you thought the year.
I got the year. I love numbers, so I have the numbers.
This one's,
Because we really know.
it's the first
Yeah,
one you
yeah.
learned.
Yeah.
First one you learned.
Yeah, I dumped everything from school.
Well, that's why we're doing all this.
It's,
Yes.
race.
All right, so I'm gonna give you guys a limited amount of time, and then I'll let them answer. If you don't, if nobody answers. So. Four,
I
three,
did half the thing because I knew the
two.
day.
What, you don't think they should be able to answer? Well, you guys aren't.
Well, they're up. That's why they don't want them to answer.
I know, of course.
We're gonna shoot ourselves.
3,
It's gonna be so obvious.
2,
I know it's gonna kill me.
1.
Can't think of
It's gonna be
it.
like honesty.
Okay, anybody can answer. You guys can answer now. Do you wanna? I should have not told you. You were correct.
The Civil Rights Act.
So I'll put you back.
Oh my goodness, Jeremy.
Civil rights? Wait a minute, where's the question?
I'm popping it up. Hang on. Civil Rights Act.
Civil rights. I knew.
I know. I can't believe you knew the year, but you couldn't remember.
Dude, I have no idea.
I thought it was, yeah.
All right.
So when was fair
I gave you a hint that it is. It's still in there, and it's gonna go crazy
The
with that.
Civil Rights Act is for any contract. It doesn't have to do with just housing. It's for all.
You should have said it.
Correct. All right. Back to you guys.
State law 600.
All right. State laws for 600. Gifts given by an agent or a broker to a buyer or a seller. I'm looking for the term for this. There's a term for it. And it's not a very common one, so it's not.
Know what happened?
A Visa card.
Wait, that's a minus right there. Minus them.
That is not correct.
Minus 600, please.
All
You
right.
can't do that.
Why?
Because this is a fun class.
I
It
just made it fun for them.
How many points did we just lose?
So now we can't even answer.
600.
Oh, crap.
In a minute, you might be able to get them back.
Honestly, you guys are wretched.
Nobody's gonna guess. You guys are wretched.
This is a bad day for me.
Yeah, you got it, but you can't.
Yeah, I know the definition, go into it and everything, but
I know.
can't think of what that one is.
I'm surprised nobody said closing gift, which is not correct.
That's what I just asked. I said
It-
you just called it
although-
a closing gift, but.
You could argue that, but what is that called? when you do that?
Yeah.
Do you guys just gonna give up?
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
Referral fee.
Another 600.
We're going
Because this is to the buyer or the seller.
You guys are the record for the team that has gone this the most I've ever seen. All right, do you guys want the answer?
Yeah, it's gonna come up Visa card.
No.
Gifts and a Visa card is a gift.
Gifts and
That is
And
true,
it
it is
is
a
like-
gift, but that's not the term. The Visa card is not the term. All right, so here's the question now for you. How much can you give to a buyer or a seller?
150,
Well,
250 now.
it's up to 250.
Wrong. Now I take away
He's
600. I'm teasing. How much can we do? It's not 250.
The percent?
Because that's a
Are you
referral
talking
fee.
about
It's
the
not
percentage?
5.
It's not a referral.
Yes.
Hello, I'm gonna say $50.
Nope.
Ah,
That's the answer.
Yeah, there's no cap.
There is no cap. You can do
Oh.
whatever you want.
Honestly.
So you could say to somebody
Oh, to a buyer or
Yeah,
a
it's not a
broker,
referral.
of course. I mean, a buyer.
or a seller, yeah. So you
Yeah.
could say to somebody, if you list your home with me, I'll pay for an all-expense trip around the world. If you wanted to do that, you can do that.
Yeah.
That's thus the inducements. That's all. Think of it this way. It would be no different than me saying I'll list your home for 1%.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no amount. So on this, you can do whatever you want. It's just a gift or an inducement to get somebody to list their home with you.
So it's solicited then?
For a buyer and a seller,
It's not a referral.
you can solicit it, yes.
Okay.
But to give somebody that's referring to you, that's where we can only do that finder's fee, which is up to the 250.
So, to a seller, we can actually,
Whatever you want. There's no limit.
Can I give an example?
Yeah.
Recently sold a house to my daughter and son-in-law. And in return, I said, you know what, I don't need to make any money off this, you can have the commission back after. So they closed on their house, did everything, they got the townhouse out in Lehigh, they got $9,000.
Yeah.
Well, the difference is because that person is not doing real estate then without a license, where a person doing referral could be considered doing real estate without a license.
Correct. Yep, you got it.
I got a question about in-house. When we have credits, when we're at closing and we're giving an agent credit, is that deducted from our total commission amount, that percent?
Yes.
It is.
Yep. So gifts and inducements are okay, and you can do whatever you want. Meaning, like, you could go and advertise, list your home with me, and I'll buy you a TV, and that's fine. You can do that. Okay. You just can't say refer somebody to me, and I'll buy you a TV.
I have to tell the story. Way back in the day, there was this agent, he was a buyer's agent, and everybody knew that when he closed, that he bought him a washing machine and dryer. It was very cool. He got a lot of business.
Yeah, and that's okay.
That
You
was
can
his
do that.
regular deal.
Yeah, you can do that. That's fine. Good. All right. Did anybody get that?
Yep, right there. See?
Okay. Who got the one before? I don't remember. Who chose that one?
We got that too.
Oh, was that us?
Was that dude?
Was that us with the Zoom? No,
I think it
was
might.
that.
I don't know. You guys choose.
Go ahead, guys.
Everybody seems to
Go
think
ahead.
it's you. You choose.
Go ahead.
Agency 600.
All right. Agency for 600. Probably one of the fiduciary duties. Obligates the agent to place the best interest of the principal above all other interests, including the agent's own.
Yeah. Loyalty.
Good job. That is
Right,
correct.
girl?
Loyalty. That's right.
Look at this comeback.
Go for it.
All right. Any questions on that? So ultimately, and again, I shared the story with you guys, I think, I don't know, within the last 2 weeks, one of the classes that we did. I shared with you the story about me calling up the agent that they were only offering 2.5, and I said, my client loves the home, but the problem is they have signed a buyer broker that obligates them to pay me 3% minus whatever I get from the other side. You're only offering 2.5. They would have to pay the difference. Therefore, they're probably going to pass on the house, which I was just playing poker with them, meaning I hadn't had that discussion, wouldn't have done it, but as negotiating, used that as part of it. That's where this whole loyalty of, like, you got to put your client's interest above your own. But that doesn't mean we can't say you signed a buyer broker and you're going to have to pay the difference. That's okay as well. Okay?
That's what we use on Homey.
Can't use names.
I have a
Of
question on
brokerages.
that. Can you addendum out a commission?
Tell me what yours means.
Well, like, okay, we're dealing with Homey, or we're dealing with everybody, the two
A
and a half.
discount broker.
Yeah, whomever. And can we put in our addendum, since we're disclosing to everything, that the commission to the buyer's agent will be 3% of the gross
No.
or 3% of the net?
No.
Okay. Why is that?
Because it's an ethics violation. Because imagine this. Imagine that we're in negotiations. I'm on one side, you're on the other. So I'm an agent, you're an agent, representing our clients. And I go back to your client and say, we'll accept your offer, but you got to reduce the commission to your listing agent by 1%. Your client's going to say, well, that's fine with me. I don't care. Like, it's just not, that's where it becomes an ethics violation. So legally, there's nothing wrong with doing that, but it's an ethics violation to negotiate commissions as part of the contract. Because the buyer and the seller agreeing has nothing to do with what you and I are agreeing in terms of commission.
Oh,
So
that's
Russ,
right.
there was an example given here within the past month or so where the agent knew in his time, misread, I guess someone had sent over an addendum because initially it was a lower commission. An addendum came through that increased it back to 3%. And then when they got to closing, realized that, oh crap, I didn't see that. And they ended up having to pay. It actually came out of the agent's.
Yeah, so here's the difference. So it is okay. So this is a pretty fine line. It's not okay for me to just say this is what has to happen with the commissions between the buyer's agent and the seller's agent, but it is okay for my buyer to ask the seller to pay. So if they were offering 2.5% on the MLS, it's okay for my buyer to ask the seller to pay that other 0.5% that they would owe me.
So how do you go about doing that without putting that in?
You're going to put it in an addendum, but it's the buyer asking the seller to pay it on behalf of the buyer. We're not negotiating the BAC. What you can't do is negotiate the BAC, but the buyer could ask the seller. So essentially what would have to look like is this, is me saying to Londa, she's my buyer, hey, if you buy this home, you sign the buyer broker that says I get 3%. They're only offering 2.5%, which means you're going to have to pay the other half.
Right.
What we could do though is if you wanted, you could ask the seller to pay that on your behalf to the other 0.5% to me. Now you wouldn't word it that way, the other 0.5%. You'd have to just say seller to pay X amount of dollars on behalf of the buyer to, and we've got basically the wording. I don't have it in my head right now, but so talk to Rob Oakey or one of the brokers before doing it to make sure you get the language right so that it's not an ethics violation. But yes, you can ask them to pay it just the same as you'd ask them to pay the buyer's closing costs. Essentially, you're asking them to pay that on behalf of the buyer that they would owe. Does that make sense? And I would recommend doing that because explaining to your buyer, you have signed this buyer broker that says you owe me 3% minus whatever we get from the MLS. We're only getting 2.5 in this case. You're going to have to make up the difference or ask the seller to pay it for you. Make sense? All right, good. Who got that? You guys did. Yeah, good job. Where are we going?
Agency for 400.
This one?
Sure.
All right, here we go. If you're like, I don't really care. All right, obligates the agent to obey all lawful instructions from the principal. Really?
Correct.
All right.
Obedience.
Yes. That is correct. See if you guys can mount a comeback now.
Yeah, well, moving right along. I have to get up my.
If we totaled up all the points you guys have gotten right, you would probably be in the lead.
I think in real estate, they should stop using the word principal for both the broker and the client.
I know, right?
It gets really
It does,
confusing.
can
Yeah.
be confusing, yep. All right, good. So we have to obey. Now, so let me give you a quick story on that. I had, early on in my career, I had gotten a call from a guy. He wanted to go see a house. I went and showed him this house. We're out looking at the house. I don't remember prices, but he wanted to offer some ridiculously low offer. And I just said, I'm not going to do that. And he said to me, you have to. And I said, no, I don't. And he said, yes, you do. I'm in real estate school and I've learned about obedience, one of your fiduciary duties. If I ask you to do it, you have to do it. And I said, the piece you're misunderstanding is we have no fiduciary duty because we haven't signed a contract. All I did is come and show you this house. You've now told me you want to write an offer ridiculously low. I'm not willing to do it. Well, I'm going to call and report you because you're my agent. And I said, no, I'm not. There's no, so I guess the question for you is, does opening the door for somebody now put me as their agent?
No.
Yeah, that's kind of how I took it. And so I ran back, found my broker, and I said, hey, here's what happened. Am I right? And he said, yeah, you're fine to have done that. So, all right.
Had you had agency signed,
Then yes, I would have had, yeah.
okay.
Had I signed an agreement with him, and
even though you knew it was way
even though I knew it was
okay.
ridiculous, it was like half the price or something, then yes, I would have had to do it. So good point, thank you. All right.
So I have a question on
Yes.
obedience then. So say you're putting in an offer to an, you send it over to the agent. The agent doesn't respond to you whether it's been received or anything. How do you know? Do you have to go to the broker or something if the agent is not responding, saying,
Yes.
yes, it's been received? Because I dealt with that, and the agent, when I first started talking to him, essentially said, my client will do whatever I say. And I'm not gonna give them anything below a certain number.
So they said they weren't going to take the offer to
They
them.
took the offer, but they weren't gonna give it to
But
me.
that's what I mean. They weren't going to present it to the
Right.
seller. Then yes, you would call the broker and say, I've sent this offer over. Your agent said that they are not going to. We have an obligation to present any offer that's written. Now, in our listing agreement, the Century 21 Everest one, the seller is agreeing that we don't have to present offers, meaning that they'll once they've accepted one, they'll let us decide if we want to present it or not. But that's something different
Right,
in our...
up until acceptance, you have to.
Right,
present
correct. Any
all
offers. Correct. Good job. All right. Who got that? Okay, where are we going? You're on your way back. You better go with the 400.
It's Visa.
Let's do.
No, that's correct.
Federal laws 200.
All right, federal laws for 200. Here we go. Answer is, all have the same right in every state to purchase
Discrimination
property.
Act of 1968.
Blah, blah, blah.
Did you raise your hand? Okay, no, that is correct. That is incorrect.
That was what?
That is incorrect.
You tricked me though, you said that it's coming up, it was the last one there.
No, that's not what I said. It's a different answer that I said is coming up.
Go for it. What we got to lose? Go
It's,
for it.
yeah, okay. It's fair housing.
Yes. This is what I thought you said, Wayne, was fair housing.
Yeah,
Oh.
that's what was coming up.
Yeah.
That's what it was translating.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, good job. Next. Back to you guys, the silent assassins.
Contracts of 400.
All right, here we go. Legitimate use. This one's kind of hard, but not really. Well, remember, what we're talking about is the elements of a contract. There are 5 things that make something a contract, and this is one of those pieces that it has to be which is, this is just another way of explaining what that term is. Okay. That is correct. Good job. Legal purpose. Good job.
I don't like this game anymore.
Come.
I think we're done.
We're getting close. All right, yes, good. So you couldn't go put together a contract for selling drugs, although I guess you could now marijuana, but not, you couldn't go sell drugs and then enforce that in court of, hey, Your Honor, but like, he signed a contract that he would sell these drugs for me and...
Is it just legal purpose, or is it like
No,
Does it adhere to zoning or commercial or any of that stuff?
Just has to, in order for the elements of a contract, it has to be for a legal purpose.
Just, okay.
Yep.
All right, great, thank you.
And another way of saying that would be.
I was just
legitimate.
tightening that up.
Was that?
No,
Oh,
that
you
was,
guys. I'm trying to give it back to you.
We should have taken it. Agency for 4.
All right, here we go. Agency for 400. Answer is, a real estate broker is deemed to have skill and expertise in real estate matters superior to that of the average person. We're talking about a fiduciary duty. What fiduciary duty is that talking about? This one's probably the hardest of the fiduciary duties. Do you want me to help you? Confidentiality, obedience, loyalty, disclosure, this one, accounting.
Russ?
Okay.
Care? Reasonable care?
Yes, that is correct. Good job.
Good job.
You're bouncing back up again.
So in order to have this one,
We should have stopped when we were ahead.
All right, good. So here's the point of this one, is you are deemed to have better skill than they do, but it also falls under this reasonable care and diligence would also fall under, if you have never done anything commercial and somebody came along and was like, hey, we want you to help us sell this building, this Ross building or whatever it is, that building over there. You're going to start going, oh, okay, that's probably what, $10 million? Yeah, I like the commission on that. Yeah, I'll help you. But ultimately, that would not be exercising reasonable care and diligence for the person if you don't know what you're doing when it comes to commercial. So I would recommend going and finding a commercial agent and saying, hey, I want to learn how to do this. I want to split it with you, and find somebody who would be willing to do that.
So nowadays, the board, at least, they're wanting a commercial agent to have designations, okay? There's a bunch of them, there's like 4 for commercial. So they're asking us to become experts at some point in time, but before we do, we need to go to the real estate broker that knows commercial in order to get that training, because to get that designation, you have to have so many sales under your name.
Yeah.
It's kind of a circle.
So, but as far as the state's concerned, you're licensed to do it.
Yeah.
It's just, this is now saying that part of your fiduciary duties is, yes, you're licensed to do it, but should you do it is really what this is saying. So, all right, back to you guys. See if you can get the last 600 points here.
Let's just do agency again, 200.
All right, here we go. Account for all money or property.
Accounting?
That is correct. I was going to say it. I just barely said this. That's one of your fiduciary duties.
He said accounting, not accountability.
Yeah.
That's true.
Wow.
That is the right answer. All right, good. So we have to take care that we make sure that we keep track of all that stuff. Next. See if you can run the table here.
It's not gonna help.
You go, Wade. What do you want?
State laws, 200.
All right, state laws for 200. Here's the answer. When advertising, the name of the name of the brokerage must be. Now, let me tell you, on this one, the law has recently changed, so I'll either accept what the current law is or what it was. Because I kind of feel like they should still be the same.
Are you looking for a size or a name?
I'm not.
Jeremy's
It's
gone.
like 1/3 the size of the biggest. No, 3 times. No.
It's 1/3.
Can I phone a friend real fast?
No, we.
The name of the brokerage.
Final answer?
Yeah.
Okay, that's wrong. Back in the back.
One
Well, the name of the brokerage must be at least 25%.
No.
No, I think no, it's 1/3.
1/2.
That is correct.
What's the new rule?
I'll tell you, that's how I have it up here, is it's got to be 1/2. The new law, that's the old one. I've left it as this, and I'll tell you why. I've left it in the game this way because the new law says it has to be a reasonable size. And now you can argue that 1/2 quarter is
Well, the
reasonable.
test was 1/3.
Well, 1/3 was right.
Yeah, it was 1/3 on the test.
It was 1/3 on
Yeah, it
the
was
test,
1/3.
because that's what I've been telling all my advertising people, so I don't know.
The law is actually, it has to be reasonable size.
Okay, that's 1/3.
Rose, who's been in business longer? I'm just kidding.
Good point.
My advertising person says that 1/3 is a reasonable size because then it can show.
Well,
up in the
that's
ad.
also what I've been told.
Well, so
by-
here's the
Is it
key.
1/3 up or 1/3
That's the
less?
problem. The reason I've left this as saying 1/2 is because the law says a reasonable size. What is that? I mean, we could argue that 1/3 is it or not, but
Yes, we could.
yeah, and you did very well. But I would say, to me, here's the default I would say for you guys. Instead of telling people 1/3, I mean, you're fine in doing it 1/3 if you want to do 1/3. It's just, I personally feel like it has been 1/2. If you stick with that, you're going to be safe. I don't know if reasonable is 1/3. I don't know.
I
But-
think the reasonable means that it has to be seen.
That's right.
That's pretty much it.
That's right.
If it's not seen, then it's not
Yep.
reasonable.
Correct.
More than the name of the agent.
All right.
Contracts for-
Somebody want to
We gotta
choose? Just
do
kidding.
that.
All right, here we go. The answer is in writing.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah, she did.
Okay, go ahead. I'm not sure that I remember what the.
Yeah,
Legal contract.
all contracts need to be in writing.
Yeah, that is true. I'm trying to remember though that. Sorry, I know what it is. So let me give you the hint, and then we're gonna wipe the slate off.
Okay.
What is the term for this? Because technically, if you were to just look at the elements of a contract, I think there's really only technically 4. But then the state has added this 5th one as a. It has to meet the legal purpose. The person has to be competent, offer an acceptance, sacrifice and a benefit, and then this. There's a term for it, and this one you guys had to know the term. So you got to be the exact term. Go ahead.
Meeting of the mind.
No. I was trying.
Valid contract.
What?
Valid contract.
No.
No, she meant to say.
You gotta keep erasing.
I'm going to. Hang on. I'm just going to erase everybody at once.
Statute of frauds.
Oh, except for theirs.
What is it? What is the answer?
What is it?
Statute of frauds.
Statute of frauds.
Oh, I never would have gotten that.
No, yeah.
I'm not trying to think of what it was.
It was basically.
Yeah,
Your teammate.
I know.
Supposed to go
Did I
negative
not
at
give it
this
to you?
game, right?
No,
Oh.
yeah.
Sorry.
Sorry, are we supposed to like bet our points now to see if we can? I'm just kidding.
No, we're not done yet.
Not done.
Now we got to do our final Jeopardy.
All right, Chris,
All right.
you're on.
How much?
Get off
Now,
the
so
phone.
hold on. Let me explain.
1 million.
Let me explain what we're going to do here on this.
Oh, honestly.
So, here's what we're going to do. So you're going to decide how much of your money you're going to wager.
You're writing and
of
Chris
that.
is answering.
But
I do.
the question I'm going to give to you are. Should I tell you or should I?
What category is it in?
Yeah.
Well, so this is going to be an Everest thing. This is not a code of ethics or even a division, anything. This we're going to talk about now. This is an Everest.
Okay.
The challenge is, if you're listening to the daily messages, you will hear John and George talk about these things, but you'll hear them use 2 different versions of this. So even though I've got one version, I'll accept the other if you're close. If you give me the other version, I'll accept it. Okay. So how much are you gonna wager?
It's a saying, they say?
It's not necessarily a saying. It's some things that they talk about consistently.
No, 32.
We bet it all.
So it's some things they are consistently talking about. Ultimately, they will say it's your job, and then
Hey, wait
they
a
give these
second.
things.
Rule.
Can we leverage our wagers? In other words, wager more than we have?
Can we? No, seriously.
Then that means you have to come to class on Thursday.
Hang on, only if you give me a Visa card.
I will.
I can be bought. With the Visa card, yes.
That's not honest.
That's okay. I can't be bought. I've already cheated once or twice this game, and you guys didn't know it. Great.
4 times.
Have I done it 4 times? All right.
Okay,
All right.
what's the question?
Write down how much you're going to wager. Got to write it down somewhere.
What are we at, Russ? That's kind of
26.
38. Okay.
26. I'll fix it for you.
Okay. I'm good, thank you.
You guys should be able to wager all the points you've had throughout the game.
I agree.
Yeah, can we do that?
No. All right. You got it? How much you're wagering?
Yeah.
You don't have to tell me, but you got it written down?
Yes.
Written down? Written down? Written down? All right. Here we go.
Oh, wait a minute, that 600 changed from 800. Did you just go to that?
No, you missed the last question.
What last question?
I don't know. The statute of frauds one.
Yeah, I would have missed that regardless.
All right, here we go. Your success in real estate depends on these 5 things, doing these 5 things consistently. So this is where I'm saying, this is where John and George, and they will occasionally say specifically this. You got to do these 5 things if you want to be successful in this business, but they sometimes change the 5 things. So most of them are the same. But so what I'm telling you is if you can get the 5 things, even though when they say it, there might be more than 5 total. Meaning like John sometimes will say these 5 and George will say these 5, but the majority of them are the same. So I'll accept if there's a little bit of leniency, I'll say. So you got to come up with what are the 5 things that if you did them, you would be successful in this business.
Buy washing machine and dryers for each of your buyers.
Give people Visa cards.
Give Russ a Visa
Give Russ a Visa card. Yes, you will be successful.
Give George and Sam a Visa card.
All right, let me know once you got it.
What? Oh, say it. Wayne's got it. Wayne's got it.
No, those
Let me see what
She had them crossed for a while, but this one's spelled.
Man, I am so simple.
Do you have 5? Is it 5 things?
You got 5?
I think that's good, Wayne.
5 would be 5.
Isn't that? Yeah, we got it.
Yeah.
We got it.
Okay,
I think they got it.
Yeah, we're gonna go with this.
You're gonna go with that?
No. No, they go there.
All right.
Every time I listen to George Simpson,
All right. I can't read it. Okay, I don't have glasses.
We have a strategy. Hence why we were looking at.
You just know how bad.
I mean,
it
do
is.
George is on the
Counting on them just mess it up.
do you want to do what they do?
I mean, you got a list.
But I mean, yeah,
They were
I think
standing
the
out.
person you want to be like, would shadow them or adapt them, do what they do. So what do you guys have? Oh, I thought we were teammates, man.
What's this?
Exercise and benefits.
Yeah.
So. Just wait on you. Technically, we can stay for
I don't think our best friends
Are you changing your answer?
No.
What did you find?
We're not giving
Multiple
this as an
things.
answer.
And like, we just keep on going, improving yourself, keep on pushing to be better. Yeah, he always talks about that.
So which one are you gonna go?
Yeah, that's the be, the do, the have. I mean, he talks about, I mean, he doesn't say be, do, have all the time.
That actually is not the right answer.
Hey.
This is an important call.
You got him?
got more.
We've added a few more, but
Oh, those five.
Keep
no,
going.
so we still.
No, I guess not.
The ones I have, that's what.
All right, I gotta get the music going here apparently. Let's see if I can. I don't know, I placed it in here, but I don't think it was working last time.
Oh, I listened to them every morning.
Then they're not expressing it well.
Apparently.
That's
yeah.
what's sticking everywhere.
You should let them know they're not expressing these things also.
Who?
The coach on the coaching call.
I know, right? I'm gonna do that, actually.
Because I've been listening to them and
I don't know why this is
some of the
not.
stuff that I said and you smiled at, it's like they cross out. I'm like, oh, well, crap, I'm not listening to them good enough.
Well, those things, everything that I've seen so far are good things,
They're
but
not
that's more about you than
Oh.
you making money. I mean,
Oh.
well, these are activities that you need to do
Okay.
around real estate.
Yeah, that's
So we got one,
Oh,
Got one?
those things?
What is it?
Everybody. No, talk to everybody.
right? We're not even going for the 5.
Let's see.
All right,
Recently,
I'm
beat
giving
me.
you, how much time? 1 minute?
Everybody.
You got 1 minute.
Do you have a bonus answer here, how
Talk
we
to
get them to
everybody.
make these text messages come in a little later in the day?
Is it?
I did not get in real estate to have text messages come at
7 a.m.
So not even this.
I do control that, actually.
Yeah.
I'm the one who sends it out, yeah.
Oh, do you?
My wife,
I got
everybody
the answer.
my
I got
wife's
the
like,
answer.
oh, there it is again.
Hey, what you,
I got
what we
the
need
answer.
to do is to teach you how to put your phone on Do Not Disturb.
Yeah, yeah, just do
Because
not
you- yeah, then
disturb.
until 8 o'clock or whatever.
Messenger.
Melissa could do
You
that.
could just do not disturb.
Paying off your
those
fees.
messages.
Right.
It's working
Yeah,
your
because they usually
face,
send it from the same.
your Instagram, your messenger, paying off your Visa bill, and keeping credit at Best Buy.
How much did they just
That is correct. No, yeah, you're
Did you
negative.
bet it
Now, are you in charge of the podcast as well?
Uh-huh.
So you put that on every day? Okay.
All right, we good?
No.
No? You got 4 seconds.
Let's go.
3, 2, 1, all right.
Let's go in order of
okay.
the ABC.
Well, first I want you guys to tell me what your answers are. So I'll start over here. First, how much did you risk?
0.
They risked nothing, so, okay. So we don't even care what they answer. Okay, go ahead.
Well, we didn't give it
I know.
answers, really.
What do you got?
We got asked questions and that's it.
Okay.
That was the only message.
How much did you guys risk?
We went all of it.
All of it. Okay, good. And what are your answers?
Ask questions. Mindset. Prospect.
That's what
The time management. And I want to say using our scripts.
Okay. Next, what do you got? How much do you guys risk?
Us,
All of it.
Yep, all of it. Okay.
2,600.
Okay. And what are your answers?
Prospecting, the SOI, contacts. We had setting goals,
Discipline.
discipline. Mindset, you had said mindset.
Okay. How much did you risk?
All of it.
All 600. All
Unless
right.
we can do more.
Big money.
Yeah.
Unless we can do more.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
No, you can't do more.
Okay, boo.
Okay, give me yours.
Prospecting, follow-up, attending appointments, negotiating offers, and working with high qualified buyers.
All right. Nobody got them all right, based on what I have. Of them.
I did.
However, theirs is acceptable. The rest of yours is not acceptable. I'm just kidding. All right. First thing is set appointments, or I would accept prospect there. Next, call 3 to 5 SOI per day. 1 listing per week. Call all your sellers weekly and participate.
I think we were too
So I am going to go back and tell, I am going to text today and say, You guys need to talk about this some more because.
Yeah, I've been listening to Daily Message since I came, and I've never heard of it.
I know. They used to do it a lot more, so I am going to go hit on that. So, all right. So where did everybody end up?
We got all our points. We got all our points. We got triple.
So you lost all yours. You lost. Well, I'll let you guys double yours. You can. And you lost yours. So you guys won.
We won.
All right.
Good strategy.
Give them a round of applause because that's their win. All right. Was that better than if we would have just stood up here and been like, all right, let's talk about gifts and inducements today? Like, all right. Cool. Thank you for being here. So we will not have class Thursday in case you were curious. I will not be here. And then next week, actually, we will have class. It's going to be relocation. So Heather from the relocation department will be here talking about what you need to know about relocation. And then we've got the title, which the one next week on Thursday is a 2-hour CE class as well on title and escrow stuff.
So Tuesday, we're gonna do all relocation?
Yep.
Whoa.
Yeah, so I'm out of town. I'm in California training next week, so I've got other people that'll be here. So, and then I'm actually out of town the next week too, and I've got people. Well, I'm still working on who's going to teach. So, but still come Tuesday and Thursday, just not this Thursday. So, okay. Thanks for being here. Everybody signed in.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yep.
Cool.
We're signed.
You are welcome.
We're ready. Rock and pop. Rock and pop.
I have a, that's right.